My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's 1920s week here in the Bake Off tent, and what the fuck was that shit?
It was less of the roaring 20s and more like the start of the Great Depression.
Yeah, look, I like the fact that we started with the roaring 20s, and we did indeed end up going through a beautiful snapshot of the 20s. Everything was going well, Prohibition was there in the middle of it, and then suddenly as we got to the end of it, the arse fell out of the market. And it's so appropriate as to what went on in the 1920s. Well, I think it was appropriate in that front. As a week of Bake Off, that was horrible.
It had so much potential. I was really looking forward to it. I'm thinking, oh my God, there's going to be... And we started off great because there was lots of mention of flappers and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the bee's knees, the cat's meow.
The drinking game had flappers on it, and I didn't know anything. I hadn't practiced. I just assumed automatically. And my God.
Every second word.
Within the first 10 minutes, I think flappers was mentioned no fewer than about 10 times.
Look...
You would have been smashed.
I think that people need to really relook at the legacy of the 1920s. Like, The Great Gatsby is all about, like the tragic heroine and excess living and champagne and Art Deco, right? But some cool things happened in the 1920s, like the majority of places around the Western democracies actually allowed women to vote by then.
Yeah, well, we were going to
Penicillin was discovered.
Well, there are a couple of key elements just tonight. First of all, Prue had to lobby really hard to be allowed to judge any bakes tonight because, of course, we're dealing with the idea of it was just at the tail end of the suffragette movement. And, of course, they got the right to vote in the UK as a thank you for helping us in World War One. I also really, as a history buff here, I also really loved the reference to the Kellogg-Brienne Pact.
Yes.
Again, for those people who don't know what the Kellogg-Brienne Pact is, it was basically an attempt through international relations to... outlaw war. Go, look, we're going to have international problems. Let's not do the war thing. This was in 1928. As you can see, it was vastly successful, and we never had another war again.
Until... but my favourite reference is to Bugsy Malone.
The Bugsy Malone reference was absolutely brilliant.
Because nothing says childhood like seeing Jodie Foster dressed up like a...
It was a bit weird.
Flapper.
It was a bit weird. So just to quickly, before we get into all of this, and there's a lot to get into, let's quickly run through the drinking game. So the Hollywood handshake. We had one. We definitely had one. It probably actually kept the person who got the handshake in the competition.
Yep. Because
the rest of his bakes kind of sucked. Reference to American Gangsters, we said Bugsy Malone. Automatically, bang, there you go. Drink. There were also references to Al Capone. There were references to the Mafia. So drink away there on that one. Use of the word flapper, as we said. You could have gone drunk.
Flapper.
I said flapper, sorry.
No, you didn't. You said flapper. Hello. Welcome to Eurovision. Please welcome to the stage. Flapper. Sorry.
Use of the word flapper. Noel distracts a baker. No, not really. Noel did a lot of good work tonight. Matcha. Enough said. Innuendo, there were a couple of innuendos there as well. I looked away from a moment, mistake. There wasn't an I looked away from a moment, mistake. Someone threw a pie across the middle of the tent.
Wales, someone with a honker.
Wales is mentioned. Who knew? We'd get all the way through an episode, no whales.
No whales.
And it's the last time. No one has heard of the bake. Look, I think the beignet soufflés, that no one had heard of them. That counts. So again, it's a heavy drinking week this week, as you can tell by apparently my use of the word flapper. Anyway, so let's get into this, shall we? So this week the Roaring Twenties hit, and the first challenge for the Roaring Twenties was 4 decorative custard pies, which is quintessential 20s. Nothing screams the 1920s like that, and I'd like to thank Sandra Thompson and Neil Folding for their hosting job of this initial part, as you remember from the opening joke, where they talked about welcoming to Paul Hollywood's Great British Bake Off featuring Paul Hollywood.
And I guess that was a reference to the 1920s film industry.
Well, but they didn't even play it up. I was so pissed off. They had so much they could have done. As you said.
Start in black and white, right? And they're acting it out silent, and then suddenly...
Paul could be wearing puffy director pants.
Paul could go, cut, cut, cut. No, you're now going to talk. And then Noel goes, what, boss? What are you talking about? I can talk. Let me on, I'll be fine.
And then Sandy there with a cigar talking about broads and dames.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been great.
It's all right. I got the broads. I got the dames.
I got the broads. See? Look at the dames. Look at the dames.
Who's in this gin joint?
But instead we got the Kellogg Bran Pack joke, and that was kind of it.
Yep.
The decorative custard pies thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Not what I think of when I first come to the 1920s. They also, now this is a really important thing I think we need to mention. At no stage did they say that any of these things had to be decorated like they were from the 1920s.
No.
Including the last challenge. It was inspired by Prohibition, and then it was basically make a sponge cake and booze it up.
Yep.
That was the opposite of Prohibition, which was the prevention of alcohol.
I mean, something interesting would have been take the flavours from a cocktail and you cannot use booze in your bake. That's Prohibition.
Which is sort of what Priya did.
Yeah, which is, when I saw her do that, I'm like, oh, that's actually Prohibition. Maybe that's what we should have done.
Now...
go on.
Now, let's start. So, Helena decided she was making a mythical sea creature custard pie. Now,
Yeah.
Prue questioned her at this point, went, was that really 1920s? And they sort of cut away before she could answer, because I was waiting for Helena's answer to be, you didn't fucking tell me to make it 1920s.
Meh.
Like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
Henry tried to justify his.
Yeah.
Now, Henry decided that he was going to... Helena's were lemon and lavender pies, which is important when we get to the judging. Henry... Look, I don't think Henry really gave a shit. And to be honest with you, I found this a bit disconcerting because they talked at the end like Henry was one of the top three. But I don't see it. I mean, for a start, his pies were just called 1920s pies.
No, were they 1920s custard pies?
No, just 1920s pies.
What the fuck?
Right? And Henry talked about the fact that Kool-Aid was invented in the 20s. I'm going with Kool-Aid flavours.
Well, at least he put some thought into it.
Now...
Kool-Aid?
He also decided to...
I was disappointed he didn't go for penicillin.
Weren't we all? I mean... in the
blue mould on the top of a custard pie.
Would have been useful. Now, Henry also said that he was going to use Italian meringue, and I like that personally. Because, again, as a historian, what you know is that in the 1920s, Italian meringue would be far more expansive than it usually was. And it would try to spread out into every nook and cranny that it could find, trying to relive previous quality bakes that it had had and trying to restore its baking prestige to former glories. Unfortunately, it's also the problem with Italian meringue, though. It tries to expand, but in reality, it can only capture one really small corner of the bake that no one wants. Usually the one guarded by people with spears, not guns. Any more Mussolini references we can make?
Didn't Henry also make a mousse?
He did.
So that he made a Mussolini.
It was a Mussolini.
Yeah, there you go.
Then we got to Rosie, and look, I was going to write some notes about Rosie's because Rosie's one was Little Blackberry Pies. That's what they were officially called. They weren't very inventive with the names today either. But I didn't write any other notes for Rosie because all I just wrote was Rosie's using matcha. And I heard it. You sort of picked it up. You picked it up when they talked about the crust and stuff like that at the end. You were like, oh, there's your problem. I picked it up at the start, and that was why I refused to acknowledge, like, Rosie's existence for most of that bake. And then when the pie went flying, as we'll get to later on, I didn't feel that bad.
You're like, that's what you get, matcha.
Look,
it's the least you deserve.
Look, every time a matcha pie is destroyed, an angel gets its wings. And if all of Rosie's tray had to fall, so be it. I am prepared for her to make that sacrifice to the matcha gods.
Yep.
Right? Who, they shouldn't be a thing. Matcha shouldn't be a thing.
Are they gods or are they demons?
Oh, they're definitely demons. Definitely demons. But remember, demons are simply supposed to be gods that fell.
No, angels that fell.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Maybe they are Litch Lords. The Litch Lords of Matcha.
The Litch Lords of Matcha.
Yeah.
That's like an episode title. That's a WoW expansion. Rise of the Litch Lords of Matcha.
You know who invented them? Fucking Murlocs. They started praising... They started worshipping matcha and suddenly rose the Litch Lord of Matcha.
Now, Michelle was using real flowers in her bake. And at this point, all I wrote in my notes was, and she still hasn't mentioned Wales. Now,
I'm surprised they weren't daffodils.
I was waiting for there to be something instead.
I wanted to bring in daffodils, but you can't eat those. Suddenly she's Irish.
That was the best Dutch accent I've ever heard.
You're welcome.
She went with blueberry and white chocolate creme brulee pies. There was a lot happening there, and unfortunately for Michelle, none of it happened. They said the blueberry flavour wasn't really that good, and the brulee didn't brulee. So in other words, she simply had white chocolate pies. Go, Michelle.
Look, she could have just had 1920s pies.
They could have just been called 1920s. What the fuck is just a 1920s pie? Like, is it full of hope and optimism, but realistic when you bite into it, it's a bit soggy?
You get it in half the ingredients at
Now,
Choux. The mafia comes and breaks your knees. You gotta buy our pies, see? You can't go buying these ordinary pies. They ain't got no protection.
I'm getting very Pomplamoose here. Bust your kneecaps. That's what we're gonna do. Anyway, Steph was talking about short crust being her nemesis. Now, the problem was, A, how do you have a nemesis that is an inanimate object like short crust? But then I went, no, I've got matcha. So I get that. What I think was the problem was her real nemesis, Paul Hollywood, was standing over her shoulder while she was talking about her faux nemesis, short crust.
She's still in it with Star Baker, so perhaps.
Maybe
The two cancelled each other out.
Maybe
two negatives became a positive.
Maybe Paul's nemesis is also short crust.
And he's like,
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Gotta be. Has to be. Alice had one of her rare moments in this episode. I say rare moments because Alice didn't do a lot in this episode.
No.
And in this moment, when they cut to her, she was talking about putting the orange flavour through it. And she got really wide-eyed and intense and went, "You will taste the orange." And I'm like, are you okay? Is something wrong? Are you being held hostage?
By Big Orange.
Was this a plea for help? Is Big Orange holding you prisoner? Is your family in danger? Are they dripping juice into their eyes? Blink once for yes, twice for no. I am worried about Big Orange, and I mean, I've been worried about the influence of Big Orange for a while. You know that personally.
Yeah.
You know, I always sleep with both eyes completely closed and watching with a guard because the citrus in your eye is not nice.
Oh, not nice, no.
Not nice. And also, you've got to be very careful because I hear when they tie people to chairs, they put like a juicer on the chair and it's really awkward.
Uncomfortable.
Really awkward. Lots of magic bullets around though, which is also just blending people up. Anyway, moving on. Now, David...
You know what? There's going to be a new movie about the Big Orange called Pulp Fiction. Oh, wait.
Oh.
No.
By the way, if you want to hear quality material like that, we'll be at the Comedy Festival this year, so don't you forget that. Information coming really soon. But jokes like that quality. Pulp Fiction.
Even though it's... Yeah.
This is why we're going to the Comedy Festival this year.
Yep. You can come and laugh at us or laugh with us.
Either
we don't
or.
mind.
We don't mind. A laugh's a laugh. David found that bone marrow was common in 1920s custard. Meaty custard. Now, that
Say more, we're all out of eggs. Don't worry, Brad. We'll just use some bone marrow.
Who's got the horse? But what I really appreciated in this sketch... It's too early, but I don't care.
It's 30 years too early.
Horses are custard, of course. No. Now, I thought, wow, that's a really interesting bit of information, but that bit of information was immediately surpassed by Noel Fielding revealing to everybody that he went to Matt Lucas's 30th birthday dressed as a flapper girl.
Oh my God.
I want photos. Like, that would have...
Wow.
Noel Fielding would have pulled that off beautifully.
That would have been...
You can see it. He would have had like the Mrs. Fisher's sort of mystery style hairpiece.
Yep.
I could just see him doing a fluid Charleston.
I'm seeing all of that.
Do you need a moment?
I'm having one. You just keep going.
While you have your moment, Michael...
that magic bullet.
While you have that moment, Michael decided to make mango, lime and ginger pies. Michael had a weird night tonight.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the judges keep leaving him out when they're talking about what's going on in terms of positives or negatives. It's like Okay, in a 1920s style reference for the movie Chicago,
Yeah.
Michael is the Mr. Cellophane of this tent. They only notice him when he cries.
Yes.
Right? For everything else, it's Cellophane, Mr. Cellophane, should have been his name.
Look, I know we're sounding disparaging about everyone in the tent.
It wasn't
tonight,
a good
but
episode.
there was no highlights. In fact, I honestly thought, the Star Baker thing was a token. Because for me, there was no stars tonight. It's like we needed to hoard them in case, in preparation for the Great Depression that's going to come around.
Everybody failed. Everybody failed.
It was...
And we're not saying this because we hate people. On the contrary, we hold Bake Off
to a high standard.
Right? I think you had a really telling comment tonight before we started recording.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the episode and we were talking quickly about what we thought about the episode.
I said I felt like I was watching MasterChef.
You should not feel like you're watching MasterChef when you're watching Bake Off.
It's fucking Bake Off.
Right. Bake Off is always held to a higher standard than the other shows because Bake Off knows better. And when we get to the technical, I'm going to need a lot of runway. I'm going to need a lot of runway. Something I haven't done on Bake Off a lot, or maybe once or twice in history. But if you've listened to a MasterChef podcast, you've heard it.
You know what's coming.
The rants are coming. So we'll get there. Because Marge, the rains are here. So Priya was going with a lemon and raspberry. Now, I don't know what happened with Priya's tonight.
No.
Like, as I said, when they got to the tarts, it was concave, it had boiled.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I can't work out...
No, there was a few tarts that were good.
But I can't work
David's
out
got a handshake.
But I can't work out with... I'm talking about Priya's.
Oh, Priya's, okay, yeah.
But so I can't work out with Priya's. Why does Priya always run out of time?
What is she doing?
I don't... Like, the other week, she got so focused on one element that she just didn't bother with anything else.
Yeah.
This week, when they were talking about problems of, like, setting and things like that, it's like, well, look how thick you've made your pastry. It's ridiculously thick. They weren't chilling properly. She boiled the custard. It just... What is she spending the time on? You don't really get a good feel for it. So you're trying to work out why she's behind, and you can never work it out.
No, the editing tonight was shocking.
The editing tonight was really bad too.
Storytelling was...
Now, they cut back just so...
It was...
They cut back so Michael could tell everybody that he doesn't like a deep tart.
He likes shallow tart.
Michael likes his tarts shallow.
Heard that here first, folks.
Yep, you heard that here first.
And considering, this was filmed fucking months ago. So we already know that he and Henry became an item. I believe. I'm trying to get definitive... It's hard to get definitive gossip, but it does look like they're loved up. So
I have
obviously
no I haven't
Michael is
checked.
a shallow tart. Just...
Henry
is a shallow tart.
Either or at this point in time.
Maybe it's just a mutual shallow tart love.
So
Had a few of those in my time.
You've had that. They're not dating, by the way.
Oh, they aren't?
They're not dating.
How do you know?
Because the first article that pops up when you look it up is, are they dating? No, they're not dating.
Oh. Well, that just burst everyone's
yes, and yours. And the newspaper that published the photos, first of all, is a paper of ill repute.
Oh, okay.
Three letter word. I will not mention.
Banned in Liverpool.
Yeah, banned in Liverpool.
Okay. No, then so that's bullshit.
Yeah, mentioned by the scum. And that's as much as we'll get into. All right, moving on. Phrases you never thought you'd hear, round 1. Helena, I'm just adding the suckers onto the tentacles. And then she paused and went, I nearly said testicles. Either or, Helena, either or.
How am I going to get through watching this without her?
I don't know at this point in time.
She makes goth beauty and fucking says testicles.
Come on.
I
kind of worry that we're going to end up with a very sterile final 3.
Oh, I don't even think it's going to be sterile. I think it's just going to be very...
And not because these people might not be interesting, but because they're not being given anything. There's nothing. The editing is not good.
No. And, something that I was so disappointed in. Okay, you're introducing a new theme into Bake Off, right?
Yep.
So, in the past, we've had vignettes of historical stuff where you learn about something. Now, it's 1920s week, a whole new theme. Pump your fucking history into this. Like,
you could have talked all about the custard pie in the 20s.
Yeah,
instead of Noel's brief, they used to use custard pies to slap in the face of comedians.
Yeah, great.
Like, I was singing the Gordon Chater. Obviously, it's much later and it's an Australian reference, and most people out there will never have heard the song. But Gordon Chater from the Mavis Brampton show used to did a routine once famously called Mad About the Custard Pie. And you can find it. Go looking for it. I do highly recommend it. It's ridiculously stupid, but very funny. And it's all about the things that he's into. So it's like, mad about the tomato, am I? I'm mad about the tomato. And then he crushes them all over his head while he's singing. And then he sings about all this other stuff, mad about the seltzer, am I? And he sprays himself with a seltzer bottle. And the finale of the whole act is mad about the custard pie, am I? I'm mad about the custard pie. And then he smashes himself in the face with a bunch of custard pies while he sings. Noel Coward liked it so much, he tried to buy it. And Gordon Chater refused to sell it to him. Because he's like, that's mine.
Yeah.
Noel Coward tried to buy the whole routine. I do recommend looking it up. But all I could think about with the custard pies was that mad about the custard pie, am I? I'm mad about the custard pie. It's a great sketch. Go look it up, please. If you get one thing out of custard pies, get the Gordon Chater sketch. Because I didn't take much out of the pies. I didn't take much out of this challenge. What I did take out of it was fact number 2 that you don't expect to hear.
Yes.
Rosie.
Yeah.
I find rabbits the hardest. They just want to die.
Perfect conversation to be having with Noel
Fielding. Because Noel said, are you just euthanizing something there? And she goes, well, I am using a horse needle. And then they're talking about the horse needle, and then talking about any animals you particularly struggle with. I find rabbits the hardest. They just want to die. And Noel lost his shit.
He's like, I know I shouldn't be laughing at this, but...
He's like, there's something funny about it. Henry is having...
The ennui was, like, fierce with, like, rabbits.
Oh, no, I don't... Look, well, actually, we did. Watership Down.
Oh, my God. You know, that's why rabbits want to die.
Trauma.
Fucking before Watership Down, you know, bunnies were, like, frolicking. They're like, we have a whole fucking holiday based around us. You know, come Easter, people think we're shitting chocolate, like, eggs.
Then we're going to tell a horrible story about rabbits trying to cross the fucking road. Meanwhile, we're also going to lay myxomatosis into the situation. Because why the fuck not? And Mike Batt's song, scarring everyone for life. I'm not singing Bright Eyes. We're going to move on.
Please don't. No, so, like... It's just, I'm sorry, rabbits. I'm sorry that, and I hope you heal.
I mean, look, Beatrix Potter did a lot for the rabbit, even if we do know that the way that they were drawn, which was they were skinned and broiled and, like, posed. So she was actually quite cruel to the rabbits.
Yes.
Which is what I love in that Mrs. Potter movie. At no point do they mention the fact that she fucking killed the animals and had them all posed.
Yeah.
They never talk about that. But... Henry has a nemesis as well. We talked about Short Crust before, obviously, for Steph. Henry has a nemesis this series.
Who's his
It's
nemesis?
the freezer.
Oh, yeah. That freezer hates me.
We talked about this, and I talked about this on Twitter, and I actually felt that it was justifiable that the freezer wasn't working, because you didn't have a fucking freezer. Refrigeration wasn't really a thing yet.
No, you used to have an ice box.
You needed an ice chest, so the Iceman would come back in our day.
Oh, yes.
Not really back in our day, but still.
No, back in my mother's day.
I've heard all about these sorts of things.
Oh, God. Like, fuck, we get it, right? We get that you had to live with polio and fucking ice being delivered by a random dude and you couldn't keep shit cold until the random dude dropped off some ice. If you're lucky to have an ice delivery, because I think my mum even just had a cooler chest.
Here's a random
wet towel.
Random question off the back of everything I've heard about the 1920s.
Yeah.
Why did nobody fashion a stick and a hoop? Because if you fashioned a stick and a hoop, the judges would have been happy.
Why were there no newsies?
That's all
no newsie caps.
All they needed was a stick and a hoop and somebody going, extra, extra, as we believe.
A bunch of, you know, like street rats playing, what are they called? Like hooligans playing stickball.
Yeah, all those kids out there playing stickball. Again, one of my favourite random Simpsons jokes is the one about when they do the flashback into the old neighbourhood with Homer and Marge, and the kids are out in the street and they go, "You want to play stickball?" He goes, "Certainly!" And then they run down to the arcade and they're playing stickball on a machine. One of my favourite random Simpsons jokes is like this idea of, hang on a minute, when they first did that, you're like, it's not the 1920s, it's the 1980s, and then they cut, there's a guy in the arcade playing stickball on a console. We need to talk about, before we get to the judging of this, we need to talk about what happened to Rosie's tarts. So...
Gravity.
It is possibly the most amazing pie drop ever. Fee, I'm sorry you've been passed. See, Fee's in Australian Bake Off just went through the oven.
Yep. That was heart-wrenching, though.
That was heart-wrenching, but there was no matcha in that either, so I wasn't quite hurt. I was more hurt by that. This one, I felt some Schadenfreude. So, Rosie takes it out, and she's sort of waving it around, and I'm looking at it going, that doesn't seem to be a good idea, but we'll go with it. She's waving it around, and she sort of turns fast, and you just see the pie. It doesn't slide. It flies. It launched itself. And because we were looking at it later, because you went, how the hell did it do that? And I'm like, well, I was watching it really closely. It came off the tray. It hit the other tray perfectly flat. It skimmed like a rock across water and launched like someone at the end of a toboggan run.
It was gearing up for the first Winter Olympics, which happened in the 1920s.
It was like a ski jump. So it like took off, and the way it just took off, and then it hit and it sprayed. And Henry decided to try to pick it up, which was funny. She's like, "Oh, Henry, don't bother. It's gone." And he picks it up, pick a bit of it up, and Michael's like piping and stuff, going, "What's going on?" And Henry's like, "Don't turn around."
Oh my God, I know what happened. Okay. So she was doing some needle magic and accidentally invoked one of those dead rabbits that want to die into her tart. She's just this suicidal rabbit in tart form.
As the pie goes across, you just hear Mike back going, "Brighter, burning like fire," as it hits the ground and explodes.
That said, I think you're going, "Take that, custard tart, no matcha tart."
Take that, matcha. So now for the judging.
I'm tart matcha.
And I'm going to do the judging in my 1920s voice.
Okay, all right.
Because I was going to do most of the episode originally in my 1920s voice. That was the plan. We talked about this beforehand, and we had a conversation last week. Will it be too grating if I do the whole episode in my 1920s announcer voice? I decided I didn't really care. But then they did so much shit tonight, I can't really tell them off in 20s announcer voice.
No, it sounds like you're telling that they're going to do the greatest thing you've ever seen.
It sounds like I'm out here talking about the positives. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this. Ready? Mm-hmm. And now, the judging. David, they said it looks like a patisserie shop pie. It was base to custard ratio, perfect, and therefore worthy of a Hollywood handshake. Now take that, Tinseltown. So we got a Hollywood handshake.
Yes, we did.
I didn't think they existed.
No, but, he's storing them in case, he's got some, worries about the market.
Coronavirus. He's actually
Coronavirus,
like the toilet paper hoarding, apparently. It's toilet paper and Hollywood handshakes.
Yep. It's completely sold out at Costco.
All right. Michael, the decoration was good. However, not enough filling. That shallow tart strikes again. Good texture. Ginger was well balanced. And wasn't Ginger pleased with herself?
Oh, I was.
Priya ran out of time on decoration. Go figure. Boiled the custard accidentally. Taste was amazing, but the pastry was thick. Also, Alice, there was booze, but there was not booze. It was orange extract, which is a bit disappointing. Where's the hooch, Alice? Steph, the colour was magnificent. The custard was beautifully set and the pastry was perfect. No handshake for her, though. She's a woman. Henry's looked neat, but there was far too much base. Maybe that's why your pies didn't set in the freezer. Custard flavour was good, but apparently overbaked. How does that work, poor Hollywood? How the fuck does that work? Michelle, Paul can't taste blueberries. Shame, since it was a blueberry tart. Also, the sugar top did not go brulee. That's disappointing, sugar.
Oh, it is, and I always go brulee.
Helena, the design was incredible. Lavender was a bit too heavy, however, and it was a bit soapy. This is sponsored by our good friends at Pears. Pears, when you want soap, trust Pears.
Or bubbles.
And Rosie, the jelly was incredible and not a horse's hoof to be seen. The jelly was melting, however, on the pies, and that's why they didn't stay. Pastry was damp, custard is delicious, but the balance is out of whack. That's the judging, thanks to vaudeville. Anyway. God, that hurts. Anyway.
How do they do it? Do they actually speak like that? Was it affected?
No, it wasn't. I think they were affected. I mean, I definitely think they were affected. But, again, it's one of my favourite voices to do is sadness, city of culture and excitement. It all comes from, I've mentioned this before, there was a video that I was watching once at university of all places. Oh. And it was about a 1940s film reel of food production during World War II. It was one of those videos they do to show the home front.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I've heard those voiceovers before. I actually had a friend of mine, I walked around the city one day and I literally did that voice the entire way.
Did he end up not being your friend after that?
He did punch me. He punched me but told me I needed to keep it up for the whole day, and I did. I know, I must be so much fun to hang around with. But
you are.
In this video, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but it bears repeating, there was footage of women in an orchard, and they were like out there gathering all the food for the war effort. And they're like, look at the women are out there doing their bit for the war effort. And then they cut to a woman up a tree on a ladder, and they zoomed in, and she was picking fruit, but they sort of zoomed in half on the fruit.
Mostly on her ass?
And mostly on her ass. And the announcer goes, look at those peaches. And that one sentence in that voice made me want to do that voice for life. Oh. Just said, look at those peaches.
Good to see sexual harassment
alive and well.
Alive and well and inspiring you today.
Look, we're being very friendly and very buoyant at this bit here because here comes the long run. The technical was a Prue technical, and it was basically, she said, you have 4 basic skills needed, but you have to get all of them right.
Now, can I just point out here,
here's
a perfect time when they can go, we've chosen this because in the Savoy in the 1920s, this was on the menu. Or something, not just ta-da.
Accurate.
And, yeah, okay, now, go.
18 beignet soufflés. Choux donuts. With a Zabulone. A Sabolone, sorry. Which is, it's spelt Zabulone, but it's Sabolone. Right, which is basically a custard, which you dunk them in. And they had to be filled with jam. There were 6 instructions. Majority of the instructions, make choux. That's the majority of what they had to do. Yep. Was make choux pastry.
Yep.
Now, you are going on to the Great British Bake Off.
What do you think you need to learn how to do when
we are 10 seasons in.
We're 10 seasons in.
We are 10 seasons in to the Great British Bake Off. We are in Bake Off territory.
No, I'm just leaning back because this is yours, darling.
Okay, so we are in Bake Off territory. Choux pastry. I'm not big on usually criticising what the bakers have to do because you're like, well, you know, it's baking on TV and that's hard and, you know, well, I bet you can't do any better. I'd like you to go and check out the Washing Up Instagram account. I made choux a lot fairly recently and did not do a test run, did not do a test batch. Literally just quickly looked at a recipe and went, that's ridiculously simple.
Yep.
And then just went about making choux pastry.
Can I ask, can you remember that recipe now?
Can I remember that recipe now? Butter.
Yep.
Flour.
Yep.
Water.
Yep.
Eggs.
Right, and what do you do with them?
So, you, first of all, you have the butter and the it's the butter and the flour.
Yep.
And then the water.
Yep.
Mix it into that paste, and you go, and then you go, oh look, this is really easy. Then you add the eggs after you take it off the heat.
Right.
So you take it off the heat, then you add the eggs one at a time.
Okay.
And you start whisking them in. That's when it gets hard.
Okay.
So once you do that,
you mean hard work, not just...
I mean either or really at this point in time.
Okay.
That's the point. Is that it's the whisking sucks.
Yeah.
Like the whisking of the choux sucks. Literally it's water, butter. I'm checking it out to make sure I had it right because I'm like I've got to be missing something. No, I had it right. Water, butter, flour, eggs. Literally, that's the elements. And again, you start off with the others, and then you gradually add the eggs, and you get the sheen on as you whisk it up, you get the sheen on the choux, and eventually you can see it, and it sticks, and you're like, okay, there it is, that's the choux pastry. They were putting all the ingredients in at once. They were starting with the eggs. You don't start with the eggs are later. They were boiling them. They could not make the choux work for love nor money. I could walk to the fridge right now, and off memory, I could make the choux pastry. And that's not me bragging about being a good baker. Choux pastry is fucking basic.
Yep.
Right? It is a basic skill. Prue says, and I quote her directly, they should all know how to make choux pastry if they are on Bake Off. They may not have fried them before. She thought the frying was going to mess them up.
Yep.
What she wasn't expecting was an entire tent of bakers who could not make choux pastry and had to remake the choux pastry and had to remake it again and burst into tears because they couldn't remember how to make choux pastry. Right? It's fucking choux pastry. I do not like being serious and angry on this show, but in this case it was absolutely ridiculous. Right? This is a basic skill. This would be like saying bakers a vanilla sponge and not being able to do that. I'm sorry to go back to a couple of series ago Bake Off where the priest couldn't make a sponge, but he went home in week 1.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't make a fucking sponge. Right? Choux pastry, you should be able to make. Now, the fall down of this challenge, the technical, is you need to explain why these were 1920s. They didn't. They gave us no context. And you talked about this before. No context about why this bake in particular was a 20s bake. It was very random. It just felt like there was nothing to it. And if you actually go through and re-watch this challenge, what you will see is there is nothing in the challenge. Right? My notes on this challenge, and I take notes through everything, my notes on this challenge are the number of bakers who can't remember how to make choux is worrying. This whole challenge is taken up by people complaining they can't make choux. Then there's a little bit on the jam, which we'll get to in a minute, and the sabalone. They say they're going to start making the sabalone, and the next thing you know, they're done. Right? That is it. There was nothing on TV to this challenge because all of the bakers took up their time working out choux pastry. We are not in week 1 anymore.
No.
This is week 5. If you can't make choux pastry by week 5, what the fuck are you doing on Bake Off? Right? I'm surprised that Paul and Prue didn't go nuts this week. They went off at them last week. There was an article when this series went to air, What's Wrong with Bake Off, and it talked about Paul and Prue being more harsh and mean and nasty. Last week's technical was disgraceful. Mm-hmm. And this week's, if anything, was just embarrassing. I don't think there is a problem with Paul and Prue. I think the problem is 2 weeks in a row, the technical was appalling, and this was an easy technical. This was not a hard technical. The thing that was supposed to be tricky was the sabalone to go with it and the frying of the choux pastry, not the making of the choux pastry. I'd be frustrated if I was them too. If anything, they held back this week. And I don't like saying that. I really don't. I want to be positive, and we're going to be when we get to the last challenge, but...
I'm not.
Well, yeah, well, you're not, but I'm going to try. But I really... more than any challenge, I think, in any series of Bake Off, this one stuck with me because it was just failure.
Yep, abject failure. It was the dawn of the Deep Depression, like what's called the Great Depression. This is it. We like to see people set up to succeed, and
they were set up to succeed with this.
They were set up to succeed, but everything, and I don't want to go. Okay, the bakers failed, but production failed.
Yep.
And editing failed. This whole episode is kind of the height of what's been wrong with this season. And the bakers individually, I think they're fantastic.
That's the thing. We actually love the bakers.
The bakers are wonderful, but I'm like, the skill set is quite low. The editing's been.
I don't even know if it's necessarily the skill set's been low. I think they've failed some really basic things. I think that they've got a lot of ability in terms of, like, you see some of the stuff they do.
Yeah, true. Like, David does pull out some fucking amazing shit.
But they only ever seem to pull it out.
It's inconsistency.
But yeah, they only ever seem to really pull the big guns out when they're in deep shit. Like, David pulls stuff out when he's in a bit of trouble and then goes back to being meh. Like, his beignets was shithouse.
Custard, amazing.
None of it, but then his custard was good. His cake we'll get to in a minute because I don't know what they saw in the cake.
But as the tent Ewok, Sandy said, "What is this? You know, you go from handshake to zero.
Yeah, I can't
0 to 0.
I can't work it out. Like I can't work out what's going on in this series. No one is consistent. Steph has been the closest to consistent. Even Steph hasn't been that consistent. She's been pretty good.
Yeah.
You've had some bakers who have had some really big highs and some really big lows. Rosie's had some really big highs and some mountainous lows.
Yeah.
Right. It's just there's no consistency whatsoever. They then did cut to a brief jam montage, and of course it was Pips out for the boys. I just wanted to chant. Pips out for the boys, Pips out for the boys.
Because they'll choke on them, and they've got diverticulitis, in
exactly.
which case they need those little seeds taken away.
And then, as I wrote here, if Choux is confusing, how's Sabalone going to go down with people?
Is it Sabalone?
Yeah, it's Sab, but it's with a Z, but it's pronounced Sabalone.
Oh, okay.
It's not Zaba. It's not Zaba. It's Saba.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not Zaba. It's Saba.
Okay.
But it's Saba, but it's actually spelt Zabalone. It's actually, if you do it as it's spelt, it's Zabalone.
I just looked up. I've got Zabaline, means garbage people in Egyptian. Oh, that's not nice.
No, it's Zabaglione. It's Zabalone.
Fuck me.
It's Sabalone, but it's spelled like Zabalone, which sounds like a weird version of abalone. A zebra and an abalone have mated. Zabalone.
I would believe that someone, who's drinking absinthe and decided, not one use of absinthe tonight, so...
I was so crushed. This was an absinthe studio week.
This was... so many things.
Where was the author, overdosing in the corner? Where was the snuff box?
Yeah. I mean, that is technically more kind of...
It was the tail end of the era, because it was post-World War I was sort of the end of snuff. That early 1920s phase was the end of snuff.
Yeah, true. There was just...
People still had the snuff rings. They still existed.
Oh.
Right. Okay. It's judging, which you know what that means.
Here we go.
Priya. They look good. They were uniform with good filling, and the flavour was good, but the sauce was all wrong. Michelle's looked like potatoes. Handy in Ireland. And they said that her beignets were doughy. You know, that dough can be quite useful. Why? You could buy yourself a sweet new dress.
Oh, that sounds great.
Alice's were way too dark. This is the 1920s in the UK. We like white things.
Yeah, don't you bring me round, although I do like a good jazz man. Play my trumpet.
The good news is that his inside was good, but his sauce had split. Michael. Look, I'm not going to do that one in the voice. Michael made blinis. They were flat. They weren't. But they did say that his sauce was good. My voice is too much. I'm not going to do the rest of it like that. Rosie's were round and a bit dark. They were cooked inside. There was too much jam, and they said that her sauce wasn't mixed enough.
Excuse me, mister.
Yes.
I hear you're looking for a new announcer.
Always, please, my dear.
I just lost my job because I was a film actress, and then the talkies came out, and then they didn't want me anymore, and I'm like, but I've done so much for you. What could possibly go wrong?
I don't know why would they not want... I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Now, who are we up to?
We're up to Steph.
Oh, Steph, she baked through. And too much jam. You don't want too much jam in your blini. Oh, are they bellinis?
No, they're not supposed to be. No, they're not. They're supposed to be beignets.
Beignets. Oh, I beignet. Him and some other French guy. It was a wild night, I tells ya. Oh, then there's David. I've been with a few Davids too. I don't think I could get with this David. Churros that isn't opened. Not a zap. I don't think they look like churros, to be honest. I think they look like little poo-poos.
And the big problem was, of course, they said that the sauce wasn't vaguely what they wanted. Like, it didn't resemble one. It was split. It was weird.
Oh, that's just crushing. I would hate that.
So, Helena,
what a doll. I am in love with this dame. She had a nice color. Good aeration, and it was delicious.
And then, of course, there was Henry.
Oh, Henry. I've been with 5 Henrys, all in one night, 2 at the same time. Nicely done, but uneven. And I tell you what, those last 2 Henrys were.
Well played. By the way, can I just give you a lot of credit for being able to read my notes? I did say to you that I type so quickly that a lot of the time, the speed at which I'm typing means words are formed that don't exist.
Can I just tell you, I'm a little bit dyslexic, so it doesn't matter. They rejumble in my head.
So when I wrote aeration, to give you an idea about this, aeration was AIRAAATION. Aeration. I'm like, holy crap, that's a new one. And the spell checker didn't pick it up, so that's worrying. Anyway.
Thank you. I'll be back on the radio soon.
I don't think she's going to make it. All right. All right, so the showstopper. Now, the showstopper was a Prohibition-era cake, and I don't know why the fuck they called it a Prohibition-era cake. It should be based on a cocktail. That was what the challenge was. Again, do they fucking well understand what the Prohibition era was? I don't think so. Furthermore, how many fucking pina coladas can you see? They don't like pina coladas. They don't like getting caught in the rain. They're not into health food. They're into champagne, damn it.
Look, it would have been a lot better, I think, to actually make it about the 1920s is not make it so broad about your favourite cocktail. Like, to be quite fucking honest, you go to any bar in the world, they'll have a different cocktail that you might not have seen before added. So when they're questioning Helena, who dared not to use a pina colada but something called a vampire's kiss, which I have seen on a cocktail menu, it's like, did you just make this up? It's like, would you fucking know?
Yeah, it was like, did you invent this? No.
It's like, narrow it down. Make the brief very specific. A 1920s cocktail with 1920s flavours. You know, you've got sidecar. There was a lot of champagne used back then. Definitely a lot of gin, whiskey, vermouth. That was big. And you've got so much going. Oh, absinthe. You know, all these things that were being mixed together. You've got a lot of different flavours. Alternatively, my other suggestion, which was what Priya did, which is alcohol flavour, not using alcohol.
Why didn't they do an Art Deco design cake?
Ooh. Make it a design challenge.
Yeah, like the others were supposed to be the flavour challenges. Make this a design challenge.
You're right.
Make this an Art Deco cake.
This is a showstopper.
Right, it's a showstopper. It's supposed to look amazing. Mm-hmm. What they did was a couple of layers of sponge. They didn't need the outside decoration on it. They needed to have it flavoured like it was a cocktail. So, like, for example, with David's one, they said, it's a very clean cake. I like the basic lines, which they liked his basic lines. But when Priya did a clean cake, they thought it was lacking in
It needed to be more vibrant.
But David did the same thing, and they said it was lovely.
You know,
Can't work it out.
I reckon if Priya left the colours out and just had it black and white...
Yep.
They would have gone, oh, look, that's Art
But
Deco.
I think an Art Deco design challenge would have been a lot better because it would have suited the 20s theme a bit more. And you can make it whatever fucking flavour you want then, which is what they could do anyway. It just had to taste like a cocktail. It didn't have to be a 20s cocktail, as you said. It just needed to be booze. Mm-hmm. Right? Michael was basing his cake on a bramble. And he did feature blackberries in it too because, you know, you have to. It's bramble, so you need to.
That's cool.
Helena. Now, phrase number 3 I never thought I'd hear. Sandy Toxvic says, bat wings coming out of the top of the cake.
You know?
She's given us so much in this series.
To be honest, though, that would have been said a lot around the Wayne mansion in the first, say, 10 years after, like, Bruce Wayne's parents' death. Like, Alfred would be like, so, young Master Bruce, what would you like your birthday cake decorated in? He goes, I want back wings, Alfred, because he's not
Yank,
British. Alfred, I want bat wings because I'm going to be Batman. And Alfred's like, okay, Master Bruce, I'll be making lots of bat wings.
My parents danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. Lots of that around the house too. Anyway, we did ask, why did Prue ask her if she'd invented the cocktail that she was doing? Now, did you invent this? And it wasn't in a fun... Did you invent this? It's accusatory. Did you invent this? Are you making this up? Fuck off.
I think there's some prejudice against Helena.
But then when they got to the judging, Prue was the one who backed Helena and said, this is actually quite good.
Yeah.
When Paul Hollywood said it was shit.
When we get to the judging, that's there. My rant.
All right. David did an amaretto cake, but then admitted he's never had amaretto.
It's just almond liqueur, really.
Yep.
Not that.
Now,
range.
Michelle, here is where we thought we were going to get our Wales reference, but no. Instead, she talked about a big night drinking in Liverpool, or as they call it, a weeknight. Yeah, look, she's talking about, again, Welsh people going to Liverpool and having a massive drinking night is not uncommon. It's quite normal.
You know when would have been a massive drinking night for
Don't
Liverpool?
Don't you dare.
How many goals was it that slipped through? Only 3? Only 3? Was it 5?
3, and we're 22 points ahead. Anyway. Michelle made a geode cake. Now, I'm going to stop to go through this. This is one of the areas I agreed with the judging, whereas I agree with part of the judging. Prue said, I think they're all very pretty. I disagreed with that. Then she said, but my problem is none of this cake goes together. There are 3 different sets of design. Not one of them matches the other. They are completely separate in style. You know what? Prue Leaf, 100% right. None of the design of Michelle's cake matched. The geode felt like she just wanted to work a geode in.
Yeah.
It wasn't a particularly good example of a geode either. It wasn't great. It looked like someone at home who's like got a woman's weekly cookbook has gone, I can make a geode, and they've gone out and grabbed like the bag of mixed lollies and like shoved them around the outside and gone, it's a geode. No, it's not. It's a random assortment of mixed lollies. Hers was not a geode. Yep. But the colours on top of that were different to the geode, and then the bottom was this weird pattern, which didn't, the colours, nothing matched. It looked like Michelle had taken 3 separate cakes and like crammed them together and gone, one!
I really feel that this is where the brief lets everyone down, because the showstopper is really about style. You want substance there, but you want to see the style fly. And
there was no style guide as to what you need to do.
Imagine if the brief was a cake that celebrates one of the events in the 1920s.
Yep.
Now you've got Tutankhamun's tomb being opened, you've got suffrage, you've got women getting the vote, you've got, not in Australia, we got way before then. 1902. No, that was New Zealand. We got 1900.
No, it was with Federation.
Oh, it was 1902? Yes.
101.
Oh,
New Zealand had it before that.
Okay. So anyways, so much went on in the 20s. They could have made a big mouldy bread cake celebrating the discovery of penicillin. TV was invented. I mean, it wasn't widely used, but it was invented. So many things. Amelia Earhart, the Spirit of St. Louis. Like, there's a lot of things that went on in the 1920s. I mean, you could also do some depressing things like slavery still going on. Or you could have done...
Well, slavery was going in parts of the world, not in America, but
Okay.
in parts of the world.
There
was an Emancipation Proclamation in the 1860s.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Thank you, historian. But what I'm trying to say is, like, there's a lot that went on. Like Gandhi and his calling, like, his strike. He did that in the 20s, didn't he?
Independence is after that.
Okay.
So a little bit later.
All
but
right.
he was in England at that point in time training as a lawyer. So,
there we go.
You've got, again, international relations-wise, you've got, like Hitler falls out of the back of a car in Germany. Literally falls out of the back of a car.
How good a cake would that be? You have
Hitler,
one with...
I would have done a Hitler falling out of the back of a car cake.
Yes.
I would have done that. Would have been great. Mm-hmm. Hitler in his cell writing Mein Kampf.
Failed Nazi coup.
Stalin ousting everyone else in the Communist Party in Russia. I mean, there was so much you could have done. Japanese empire building. Australia being racist. You could have done so much. Like, there was a lot to do. Instead, we got all this weird stuff. So Priya mentioned pina colada at this point in time because Michelle said pina colada. Priya mentions pina colada. Alice mentions pina colada. Michelle is death staring everyone in the middle of the tent. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're doing? What do you mean you're doing? Then...
The Welsh dragon was erupting.
It was. But then they cut to Alice, and she was not only talking about pina colada and getting caught in the rain, but talking about upside-down pineapple cake. And I'm like, well, we're going to get an upside-down pineapple cake. No, what we got was pineapple chunks through a cake. It's a bit different to an upside-down pineapple cake.
Yeah.
Like, if she'd made the base of that cake upside-down pineapple, win. Right? And then they cut to Steph, and I'm like, oh, thank God, we're going to get a bit of respite here from this idea.
No.
Steph is also doing a pina colada. And hers looks like a pina colada.
There is a lack of imagination going on.
But then it was all good, because they cut to Henry, and Henry was making a White Russian, and I'm like, thank God, we've got something different. And they cut to Rosie, and I'm like, that design looks great. What are you? Oh, it's a White Russian. We have 6 of 9 bakers doing 2 cakes. Mm-hmm. We had 4 pina coladas and 2 White Russians. Are we that devoid? And technically with the rest of them, amaretto's not a cocktail.
It's a liqueur.
It's a liqueur, so that's not even a cocktail. It doesn't meet the brief. So that didn't meet the brief. Michael's meets the brief. Helena meets the brief. The others, as much as I think they're boring, meet the brief. David just used amaretto. That's not a cocktail. So what was the point of any of this?
Well, what was the point of this whole fucking episode?
So, well, you know what the point of this whole episode was? It's really simple. We found out that Helena makes her own raspberry vodka.
That's true.
And then she gave it to Sandy Togsvig, who nearly died. Imagine the still at Helena's.
Yes.
Like, again, I've got the Simpsons episode with Homer as the beer baron. I've got this idea of all the bathtubs exploding.
Yeah, but she's got an old, like a tub from a morgue. And that's what she's mixing it into. And you have to go down a creaky staircase into her basement.
I wonder
followed by a little man called Igor.
I wonder if she took Michelle's beignets, because they said that they look like potatoes. So I wonder if they took those to make more vodka.
Oh, wouldn't you?
I would, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, they cut back to Prue, and she looks at Paul and goes, I'm interested to see who's really going to do that 1920s design we're looking for. Which was never the brief.
It was never mentioned. It's like you set a bar, and then all of a sudden you're changing the rules. It's like when you're playing fucking a card game or something with a kid. Like my niece, right? You'll be playing Snakes and Ladders, and you're playing along, and then she goes, and then something happens that makes her go down a ladder like a snake, and then she goes, actually, we're going to play this rule, and this rule means that we're going to do that snakes make you just go down halfway, not all the way.
And you skip off the tail and jump everybody.
And then she keeps going down the halfway snakes, and she's like, okay, no, this time it's going all the way down because you got on the big snake, and that'll mean that I'll win. To
give you an idea about changing the rules halfway through, which it kind of felt like this is what it was. I had an assignment at university once. Funny enough, it was an assignment where you had to set an assignment as part of it. And they talk about making sure that assessment criteria is all the same. You've got to give them the criteria beforehand. No surprises. So we give in our assignments, at which point they hand us a brand new marking criteria for our assessment that we've just handed in. where they change the marking criteria. And everyone in the room goes,
Excuse me?
you've literally just told us you can't do that. Now you've just... Oh, yeah, we can. No, you just told us you can't change the marking after the assignment's handed in. Doesn't work like that. It's got to be consistent across the board. Right? That's what this felt a bit like. They sort of half changed the rules across the board.
It was a confused night.
What we need to talk about, though, in a confused night, you need someone to wade through the darkness.
Yes.
And provide a torch, nay, a guiding light. Noel Fielding.
Oh, wasn't he
a hero among men tonight.
He was the people's host.
Noel Fielding had one of his personal best episodes in this shit show.
His discussion of how Sandy Togsvig is an Ewok and Paul is a grizzly polar bear, and that Prue is like a pretty fancy lady, and he goes, and me, a vampire. Like it's just wonderful. When he was talking to Helena about what her children would... No, was it Helena? No, Priya, when she's like, look, Mummy's being kidnapped by a vampire and an Ewok and a grumpy old polar bear and a pretty fancy lady. Like, it's just beautiful.
It was, yeah. Noel had an amazing episode. He kept... Look, Noel was the thing that I think kept a lot of people watching.
Yeah.
He sold the bakers. He worked the baker. Like, he gave the bakers some confidence.
Yep.
He talked them up. He made them feel like they were better than they might have necessarily been in terms of the challenges. Just unbelievable work. Unbelievable work. Okay, it's judging time. I'm not going to do the voice this time. It's getting late. They said that the colour was there, but the flavour isn't. Remember, when they talked about this after the fact, Henry was apparently one of the best 3 bakers in the week.
It just shits me.
I can't work it out.
It's all
they said his
bullshit.
They said his first bake sucked, his technical sucked, the showstopper wasn't very good.
But apparently he was one of the best 3.
I just realised as well, I never ran through the rankings of the other. It doesn't actually matter because they were all horrible. All you need to know is, more importantly... Helena won. That's important. Helena, Prue says that it was such a mixture of sinister and pretty. Paul hates the outside because he didn't like the piping, and look, I will agree with him on that front. I thought that Helena's piping wasn't very good. He thought the cake was a bit bland and dry and he couldn't taste the raspberry.
But you could taste the vodka.
Prue could. And said that I thought the cake was nice.
I'm wondering, is it Paul's taste buds? Because he couldn't taste the blueberries as well.
Maybe they're a bit shot. Henry's, they said that... they said then that the next cake was elegant, looks 20s, nice flavour, a bit dry.
Is that 2 Henrys?
Yeah, that was why I was trying to avoid that. So,
oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, to give you an idea of why these bits of note might be a bit confusing, we were watching it upstairs, the internet failed and we had to sprint downstairs.
That's right.
Rosie, interesting looking, that's never what you want to hear. They said the ganache was more like chocolate. It was heavy on the booze.
Chocolate bar.
Heavy on the booze, but the sponge was good.
Is that a Twix you've just whacked on the outside?
I think it was. David, they said they liked the naked cake look. They sort of collapsed onto each other. It was grainy with the buttercream. The sponge was good. I can work out the difference. The first Henry was actually Michael.
Right, okay. Colour is there, flavour is there.
I was flying downstairs.
I know, I'm sorry, love.
No, I'm explaining to people.
Oh, okay.
Not you, I'm not explaining. You saw me.
Yes.
You saw me
like,
running with a laptop over my head going, for God's sake, man. Actually, no, I was running downstairs going, we're not missing anything. It's not that interesting. Yeah. David, they said they thought the sponge was quite good. Alice, Prue thought it looked like a mess. The pineapple pieces were really large. And you can see it. They cut into the cake and there's chunks of pineapple in the middle of it. And they went, the flavours are nice, but that's way too big. They're like, you need to break the pineapple up a bit. Priya, they said the decoration is rushed. The flavour was delicate, however, but the fondant was thick. I was a bit surprised that Priya survived. Her first challenge sucked.
Yeah.
This one wasn't very good. In the technical, Priya was second. They can't argue that saved her because the person who came first went home. Steph, they said it looks like it's pina colada. The cake was quite good. Paul thought that lime sponges were a first. He's never seen a lime sponge, and he loved it. Surely Paul fucking Hollywood has seen a lime sponge.
Have we? Is this actually Paul Hollywood, or do you think they've got a Paul Hollywood lookalike because he's off doing his Paul Hollywood does bread in France or whatever it is?
Oh, isn't he doing the American series of Bake Off, the new one?
Yeah.
Maybe he was over in America and this was a stand-in.
Yeah, who's got no taste buds, can't taste fruit.
None at all.
And has never had a lime cake.
Yeah.
People didn't want to tell him that was the vanilla slice. Anyway.
I like the idea they've got an earpiece in. And, like, Paul Hollywood's supposed to be giving instructions from a monitor in America.
Yeah.
But Mary Berry's intercepted it. And she's got, like, a computer doing Paul's voice and typing in the wrong things, going, that'll fix you. They said that Michelle's decoration was interesting and pretty but overthought. How does that work? How can it be interesting, pretty, and overthought?
Because she had 3 different fucking themes going on at once.
They said that nothing matched. They said her sponges were equal. You know you're in trouble when they're going, the size of the sponge is equal.
That's good.
However, she put shavings of coconut all the way through the cake.
Yeah,
And they said that texture-wise doesn't go with a sponge.
She's like, but I've watched The Simpsons. I know that the ultimate is a coconut cake.
So we did ask the question, how does Michael avoid the focus? I don't understand it. Because Steph was star baker, and I could get that because you needed someone. 2 going home. Michelle, I got.
Yep.
Helena, I didn't.
I think they brought in Helena because her first one, they said that the lavender was heavy and it was soapy.
Yeah, but they also said at the same time it was soapy, but the flavours weren't terrible.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, they had this weird night, I think, of qualifying people, but then going, but it was shit. But qualifying, but shit, but qualifying. And, like, again, the editing wasn't good. Like,
I mean, the baking wasn't good, the editing wasn't good, and the judging wasn't good.
But beyond that, it was a great episode. Noel Fielding was a star.
hosting, fucking star.
Noel Fielding was a star. And
He should have got Star Baker.
And Sandy Togsvig with the able assist. Like,
Yes.
But
Do you think she has to rush off and film something on the first day's afternoon? Because, like, she's never there for the afternoon kind of.
well, she's there,
For the
but
technical.
they usually don't use her a lot. I assume that she probably had about 1 million things to film at this time.
She's like, I've got QI and.
I've got my quiz that I do on radio, and I've
Yeah.
got a bunch of other things to go.
Yeah, true.
And I'm probably sailing down a river with Griff Rhys-Jones, because everyone is doing that nowadays.
And she's got to go visit her father in the garden.
Yes, exactly.
He's in a retirement garden now.
I don't quite understand why Helena went home. I don't really get it. I thought Priya had a worse week by a fair bit. I thought Michael had a really bad week too. Michael came 8th in the technical.
He confuses me why he got to stay
Seems bizarre.
and wasn't even mentioned.
It seems bizarre that they don't even bring him up, and I can't work it out for the life of me. Anyway, just to finish off the episode, first of all, thank you everyone for continuing to listen. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate the drinking game stuff as well. It's really good. We're getting a lot of people going and playing the drinking game. Spread that around. Tweet it to people. Show them the drinking game if they're watching Bake Off. Let them know the drinking game's out there. It's really good fun. And again, a reminder to everyone, hopefully by this time next week, we will have some concrete information we can give you. Actual deets. We're going to be in an
actual venue in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
I mean, we've got deets, but we can't give it out yet. But
we'll have permission to give dates.
Once we can give the details out, we will be able to give you some more information about how to come and see us live.
Live.
Again, it'll be live, it'll be in person, it'll be fun, it'll be fascinating.
You too can join in the chaos.
Laugh with us, laugh at us, either or, we don't care.
Laugh at your own jokes.
Yeah, make your own jokes. We're happy for you to contribute.
Bring your own joke book. Just have a giggle.
Yeah, just halfway through.
Watch The Office in the background.
Why can't a car play football? Because it's only got one boot. Ba-dum-ching. There you go. Every joke is a winner. Until next week.
Yes.
I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Boop, boop, be-doop.